The FAL, Fusil Automatique Léger, was called the right hand of the Cold War. It fires the 7.62 by 51 NATO round. It weighs 9 pounds unloaded. And it armed more than 70 countries from the 1950s through the 1990s. This is the story of the rifle that defined what a battle rifle should be. The FAL was designed by Dieudonné Save at Fabrique Nationale in Herstal, Belgium. Starting in the late 1940s, Save had spent years designing submachine guns during World War II and emerged from the occupation with a clear vision. A selective fire battle rifle that could fill every infantry role. The key debate at the time was caliber. The British and Americans were moving toward intermediate cartridges like the 7.92 by 33 mm Kurs. But the U.S. Army ultimately decided to stick with a full-power 7.62 by 51 NATO round. A decision that would shape the FAL's entire career. The U.S. Army's 1949 Conference on Standardized NATO Ammunition selected the 7.62 by 51 over the British intermediate cartridge proposal. This was partly political. The U.S. wanted to preserve the familiar .30 caliber, and partly institutional resistance to the new concept of small caliber high-velocity rounds. FN designed the FAL around this 7.62 mm NATO cartridge from the start. The rifle's gas-operated rotating bolt mechanism was inspired by the German G43. With a 20-round magazine and a cyclic rate of approximately 650 rounds per minute in automatic mode. Gas operation. The FAL uses a gas-operated action with a long-stroke gas system. Hot gases from the bore are ported into a gas cylinder above the barrel, driving a piston that pushes the bolt carrier rearward. The rotating bolt locks into the receiver via two fan Dewey lugs. Ergonomics. The FAL was designed with infantry ergonomics as the priority. The polymer or wooden stock, adjustable rear sight, and comfortable grip made it pleasant to shoot. A notable achievement for a 9-pound battle rifle firing a full power cartridge. The 20-round magazine. Unlike the 30-round magazines common on modern assault rifles, the FAL uses a 20-round box magazine. This was considered sufficient for the planned fireteam tactics, where the rifleman would supplement rather than replace the machine gunner. Selective fire. The FAL's safety fire selector allows semi-automatic and fully automatic fire. In combat, most soldiers used semi-automatic fire for accuracy, reserving automatic for suppressive situations. The weapon's manageable recoil in automatic mode made it effective in the machine gun role. Finish and durability. Early FALs had blued carbon steel receivers and barrels. Production quality was high. FN's manufacturing reputation carried into the rifle. Paratrooper variants featured folding stocks for compact transport. The FAL became NATO's standard service rifle, the alliance-wide preference that gave it the nickname the right hand of the Cold War. Over 70 countries adopted some variant of the FAL, making it one of the most widely distributed military rifles in history. Britain adopted the FAL as the L1A1, their own copy with minor modifications. The British received the prototype in 1951 and began fielding it in 1954. The L1A1 variant eliminated the fully automatic mode, retaining only semi-automatic fire. A decision based on British infantry doctrine emphasizing accuracy over volume of fire. Australia adopted the FAL as the FN FAL in 1959, producing it under license at the Lithgow Small Arms Factory. Australian soldiers carried the FAL in Malaya and Vietnam, where the rifle proved reliable in jungle conditions despite concerns about its weight in tropical heat. Canada, Germany, Israel, Brazil, India, and dozens of other nations adopted the FAL. Israeli forces used it in the Six-Day War and Yom Kippur War, where the reliable gas-operated action handled the desert environment well. The FAL saw combat on every inhabited continent during its service life. In Vietnam, Australian soldiers carried the FAL extensively and found it well suited to the jungle. Reliable, accurate, and effective at the ranges typical of ambush engagements. In Rhodesia during the Bush War of the 1960s and 1970s, the FAL became the rifle of choice for Rhodesian forces fighting communist insurgents. The rifle's reliability and stopping power from the 7.62 mm round were valued in the bush. The Falklands War of 1982 saw British soldiers carrying the L1A1, the British FAL variant, against Argentine forces who carried the same rifle. Soldiers on both sides used essentially the same weapon, which speaks to the FAL's international adoption. In Angola, India, Pakistan, and dozens of other conflicts, the FAL was present. By the 1980s, however, the rifle was being supplanted by lighter 5.56 mm assault rifles like the M16 and Stoner 63, which offered greater ammunition capacity and reduced weight. The FAL's decline came as NATO shifted to the 5.56 by 45 mm cartridge in the 1.